So I'm going to be talking about two things I'm very passionate about, which is blockchain and DAOs, and then we'll sprinkle in a little governance in there as well. So I think it's important to frame what blockchain actually is and why there's this movement going on around it. Simply put, blockchain is a technological innovation, and what it is, it's a new record-keeping system. It's a new type of database. It's a database that's controlled by many people instead of one. So instead of Google controlling the data, or Facebook, or the government, it's actually controlled by the people that use the network, use the blockchain and this new technology. Okay, so there's this new database, but what are the innovations that come along with this database? One is immutability. Once the data goes on this chain, you know it's real. You know what the truth is. It's there forever. No one can edit it. No one can censor it. No one can turn it off. Now the other part is it's censorship resistant. So no authority can erase what happened. So for the first time in human history, what we have is a technology that creates a global source of truth that society can run on top of. You know, whether it's economics, so sending money around to people, or it's elections where everyone can know, hey, my vote was counted, and you can see live results of it. Imagine the improvement we could see to the electoral system. So how does blockchain actually advance humanity? The first thing is transparency. You know what's going on. And in many sectors, that's not the case right now. The second thing is audibility and being tamper-proof, and this also goes into accountability. So you can see how funds were spent. You can see what transactions happen. You can see who owns what asset, which feeds into what Fede was talking about with the real estate. And then one of the most powerful things about blockchain is that it ensures self-custody. Now, this is a concept that I think should never be overlooked when we're talking about Web3. When you have your assets in your wallet, they are truly yours. Those dollars in your bank account, the reality is they could get frozen for no good reason. And my worry is that Web3 in this blockchain revolution doesn't happen until very bad things start to happen. When we start to see bank runs and people are like, oh shit, like I could have actually had stablecoin in my wallet and it couldn't have got taken from me. Look at the Silicon Valley Bank thing that happened recently. It's happened throughout history. So does anyone in the audience have any ideas about where we could use more transparency, more auditability, more self-custody in our society right now? We've heard a lot of ideas today, but do you guys have any that pop in off the top of your head? Congressional stock portfolio. Oh, that's a spicy one. I like it. Any other ones? I'll talk through some. So I think a government, it doesn't necessarily have to be at the federal level, even at the state level. Should we have, the bills being passed, being stored on chain, the votes being casted by the Senate members, by the House, should they be stored on chain? I think of insurance, and this is a funny one because I'm from South Florida, and it boggles my mind that there is pretty much one insurance company that covers everyone in South Florida. If a hurricane comes, that company just gets decimated. And all the people that have insurance, they have to struggle to get their money back. So why don't we decentralize insurance? Have a bunch of different policies, have one person in Florida be a part of it that pays into it, one person in Indiana, one person in California. Spread the risk. I think this is something that should really be looked at, and it's just an idea of mine. I don't work on it. Real estate. I think Fede talked really good about this. Like, if you can have your deed, like if you've bought a house, if you sold a house, I think you know how that process is. It's pretty annoying, and all the middlemen you have to deal with. How about some peer-to-peer real estate? Tax-funded entities. I think this is another example that, if we, the citizens, are paying taxes, we want to know how this money is being spent. Or maybe we don't want to know, but we want to have the opportunity to check and verify. Data ownership. Right now, when we use applications, we log in with Google. We log in with Facebook. This paradigm shifts, and you start to own your own data when you start to log in with apps with your own keys, your own wallet. That's why you click Connect Wallet instead of clicking Sign In with Google. Supply chain. Ian talked about this one. It's like having it's like having your buddy's location. If I have my friend's location, I can see, oh, he's still out at 1 a.m. at a bar, I know what to expect, when he comes home. If you are part of a supply chain where you have many different partners, you can see, okay, that package reached their facility, here's the condition of it, it's going to be here in 2 days, and you can see this auditable trail. It really makes a difference. Nonprofits, they have a strategic and competitive advantage to be more transparent. So should their finances be put on chain? Political campaigns, kind of the same vein. I think that's something that should be transparent, and we should see the inner workings of who's giving money and to what, to influence what, that type of thing. So really, underlying all of these ideas and all of this movement, and the reason we're here, is blockchain. And it's the technical innovation that sets the foundation for the digital asset revolution. Okay, so there's millions of people right now. They're buying digital assets just to see the number go up. But the real power in this movement is what you can do with these assets. They're not just tokens, they're tools. They give freedom, they give power to the individual. So there's many types of digital assets, and I think Vivian did a better job of summarizing them than I will do. You have cryptocurrencies. Oftentimes people think crypto is the same as blockchain. It's not. Blockchain is the technology that enables crypto to exist. You have security tokens, you have stablecoins, you have NFTs, you have real-world assets that get stored on chain. So there's many different types of digital assets that blockchain enables. So what can you do with these digital assets? You can prove ownership, whether it's of real estate, whether it's of an insurance policy, whether it's of really anything. You can self-custody. I already talked about this a little bit. Borderless payments. We can get rid of the remittance rip-offs. Some people are paying 15, 20, 25% just to send funds back to their families. And that's why you see this as such a great use case for crypto. It's because it's a decentralized system and you can operate peer-to-peer, dodge the middleman. You can have digital identity. You can own your own identity. You can build your own reputation. It can be stored on chain so everyone can know it's true. I talked about cutting out the middleman. I think there's so many industries where you see this as a really big value add for blockchain. And then you also have governance participation. And this is a good segue into the next topic, which is DAOs. So DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. And it's kind of weird, but I've been working in DAOs for 4 years, and I don't really know how I ended up there, but the way I see it, what DAOs are, they're just a new organizational structure. So you're starting to see legislation being passed, whether it's in Wyoming, Tennessee, Colorado, Vermont has some blockchain-based stuff. We are hopefully working with New Hampshire to build out their DAO registry. So all of these different states are recognizing this new organizational structure as something legal that entrepreneurs can use in the future. And my thesis is that when entrepreneurs go to create companies in the future, they're just as likely to create a DAO as they are to create an LLC, because they will be accepted. There will be benefits to this organizational structure over other organizational structures. So DAOs are like the blockchain native organization. They're the ones that if you are completely operating on the blockchain, you're going to be a DAO. And these are organizations that are governed by code and the people that hold the tokens, which the smart contracts recognize. To tell the story of DAOs, I think to put it into context, in 1997, the LLC was put into legislation. I said invented here, but a bill was passed. 20 years later, 80% of the states in the United States recognized LLCs as a legal entity that you could do business with. And then, fast forward to closer to now, there's over 21 million of these. So DAOs, their first legislation was passed in 2021, not too long ago. And this was the Limited Liability Decentralized Autonomous Organization. And right now there's about 5 states. It could be more now, but definitely more are working on it. So what we're seeing is the acceptance of this new organizational structure on a state level, soon a federal level. And in practice, there are more and more DAOs being created. So you can see in 2018, it was a nascent concept. You had the DAO created, and then that DAO was hacked, but people still were captivated by this concept. And why are DAOs different? So why would you go with a DAO over an LLC or a corporation? Well, one is they can scale rapidly. So when you have a DAO, say you start one and you have 5 people in there, and then your movement catches on, and you get 100,000 people to buy the token. The core governance structures, you don't have to do anything. You just have to, the smart contracts behave the same. The way the organization is governed is fine. So you can scale rapidly. Think about trying to scale an LLC and hire a bunch of people. That's going to be much different of a process than trying to scale a DAO. The other thing is it switches the paradigm because traditional organizational structures, they're built for a board-employee relationship. Now DAOs, what they're built for is a core contributor and community relationship. So you push to the front bottom-up decision-making frameworks. The other thing, which I think is my favorite thing about DAOs, is transparency and trust. You're operating on a blockchain, which forces you to be transparent. It makes good actors obvious, which I think is really important. Then the last thing about DAOs is the autonomous decision execution. Because you're leveraging smart contracts, once consensus is reached, it automatically executes. So say you have a DAO of 5 people and you want to buy some real estate, but your DAO knows that 4 out of 5 people have to vote yes. After that happens, you don't have to wait for John to move the money from the bank account. It automatically goes from the DAO's treasury to where you want it to go. There are many misconceptions about DAOs as well. Not every group that says they're a DAO is actually a DAO. Most of the time, well, not most of the time, oftentimes they're like a group that has a multi-sig and they have a token, but they don't actually use a smart contract governed treasury, which I'll talk a little bit more about. The other thing is oftentimes people think DAOs need to be this big, sprawling organization with thousands of people around the world. It's really not like that. You can have DAOs that are 5 people that want to buy real estate together, 10 people, friends that want to come together and do some sports gambling. Whatever you want to do with a DAO, you can do it. Now, decentralized autonomous organization, when I think of the word decentralized in this, it's not decentralized because it has a lot of actors in it and it has a messy kind of hierarchy structure. While it can have that, the reason it's decentralized is because it operates its finances on a decentralized ledger. So if you hold your assets in a smart contract, you are decentralized because the way you're keeping track of your finances is on a decentralized ledger. In order to be a real DAO, you have to have a smart contract governed treasury. So in the last 4 years, as I've been working on DAOs, me and my co-founder as we've worked with many communities, have come up with the 9 phases of DAOification. And I'm just going to walk through these, and the use case I'm going to use is a content creator. All right, so a content creator might start, like they build a Patreon, right? And they have gated content. So people purchase membership to them so they can see, a special edition clip where the YouTuber's playing golf with Tiger Woods, and you get that type of thing. And then this YouTuber kind of wants to keep building his community and make them more engaged and give them more of what they want. So he starts creating incentives where it's like, hey, you watch this video and repost it on your Twitter, you can get 50 points. And then you can start to have leaderboards pop up where you have more gamification of your community. And then the content creator says, okay, now that I got this bought-in community, now I can start to ask them questions and make decisions with their feedback in mind, which is where you have community voting coming in. None of this is happening on chain. This is like all Web 2 stuff. You have to build towards being an on-chain organization. It's not something where you just flip the switch on and you can just do it. Now, once you start to get community voting happening, then you can start to introduce digital assets. You can say, hey, in order to be a member of this community, you have to have this NFT. Okay, and that NFT can give voting power. That NFT can give access. It can have some utility around it. Then you start to use those assets for voting. Like I said, it could be voting power. And then a huge step for a DAO is when you start to actually have a treasury that the community rallies around. You start to have funds that the community can actually use. So you might start with a multi-sig wallet. You might have, maybe it's one of the core founders and then a handful of the community members come in to say, hey, we got $10,000 here. We're going to use it to advance our mission. And 4 out of 5 of us have to sign in order for these transactions to go. And then you can start to have actually on-chain voting. So not only are you using digital assets as voting power, but now you're getting to the point where you're casting your community votes on-chain in an immutable state. And then the big kahuna comes where you actually launch the smart contracts that make you a DAO. You create the smart contracts, you have a token that your community holds, you have the smart contracts that say, hey, this is how much of the token you have to hold in order to create a proposal. This is how much of the token you have to hold in order to cast a vote. This is how much of the token has to vote yes on a proposal for something to actually execute. So that's the on-chain treasury part. And then the last part is the legal entity part. And this is something that's evolving. But like I said, I mean, Japan, we do some work in Japan. Japan has some DAO legislation now, which is really cool. A lot of different states are looking at it. Other jurisdictions are looking at it. But it's my opinion that when you have a decentralized autonomous organization with money involved, you should have a legal entity, because that protects the liability of your members. In some use cases, I think KYC should be required as well. But in many use cases, I don't think it should be. But you might have to have board members where they can be accountable for the actions of the DAO. So my company is called Clear Contracts, and we're a blockchain and AI consultancy. And really, we started with DAOs because they were at the bleeding edge of transparent governance. And we built a self-service DAO management platform. It's native to the Cardano blockchain, and it does a lot of different things. You can do on and off-chain governance, you can do on-chain treasury management, you can create a hierarchy within your community with a badge system, you can do incentive management, staking portal, gated content. So there's a huge feature set here. So really, what we do is all of these feature sets, we have an SDK. So if there's a company that wants to get their feet wet in blockchain, and maybe they want to start with some, maybe like give their community some voting power, we can build out a custom portal for them just by tapping the APIs and then putting in the features that they want to have. But what we recently realized is that blockchain governance is really valuable beyond DAOs. So the ability to record votes transparently and manage communities is really beneficial to traditional organizations, not only DAOs. So what we did is we built a dead simple governance portal where people come on, they cast votes, and these votes are recorded on the Cardano blockchain. We actually got to debut this tool at the Cardano Constitutional Convention. So just a quick note on Cardano, it's doing things a little differently, this blockchain. We're going through a full decentralized governance update. So anyone that holds ADA is able to govern a $1.5 billion or 1.5 billion ADA treasury, which is like probably $1 billion right now. And it's messy, it's decentralized governance. But before we could have this budget process, the community had to come together to create a constitution. And there was people from, I think, 80 different countries at this event. There was an event in Buenos Aires. There was an event in Nairobi happening at the same time. And we went line by line after of this draft of the Constitution that was made through hundreds of community workshops. So it's a really cool thing we got to do. I thought that was worth mentioning. So really what my company does is we do business-to-business deals to provide blockchain governance solutions, DAO solutions, and AI agent solutions for clients. And we do work in a lot of different verticals. Our main niche is the Cardano native companies. We're trying to work with government agencies, like we're close to working with New Hampshire to build their DAO registry, and I think more states will need that service soon here too. We've been working with sports clubs to manage their communities, content creators. HOAs is a funny one. I'm trying to get a DAO, a better voting system for my HOA, because everyone's always complaining that they don't have a voice, but they're like too old to download an app, so it's probably not the target market. But yeah, that's it. Happy to answer any questions.